Good afternoon and welcome to Solent Sports News. I'm Abdullah Babalola with your latest headlines. We start with American football. The Solent Redhawks are heading into a crucial stage of their season. Sam Cheshire is just one of many players hoping to help secure their spot in this year's playoffs. Here's George Venn with more. The Reading Rockets Basketball Club has announced today that they have applied to join the fully professional British Basketball League. This application comes after the league's new £7 million investors have called for the need of more teams in the league. The club are hoping they will be accepted and allowed to participate in the next season as the 11th franchise in the highest level of British basketball. Next up, our reporter spoke to a Solent Rugby first team player, Ben Shannon, about his fight with injuries in the past and his road to recovery.
This is Ben Shannon, who plays rugby for the Solent first team, as well as being paid to play over on the Isle of Wight for Sandown Shanklin. He is currently out of action after suffering an injury.
Yeah, so I played on Saturday for Sandown Shanklin, and at the end of the game, one of the scrums collapsed, and I quite badly sprained my right wrist. So I'm not sure how long I'll be out for, the minimum of 2 weeks, but obviously depending on that will determine when I'll come back to play rugby.
Despite his packed schedule with balancing university, rugby and work, he still manages his time wisely to train weekly and maintain his studies.
Well, Solent train on a Monday, just here as you can see from the background. It's one of our training sessions. I'm quite lucky with my home team because I don't have to train there as well, obviously because it's on the island. I've crossed the water to get there, so they allow me to just not train for them. So Monday's training night, I designate every week, so it obviously allows me to do my university work the rest of the week. With work and that as well, so I have to manage my time wisely to keep up with everything.
Although he is unable to play at the moment, he is still getting involved in the training sessions and supporting the team in any way that he can.
You go, yeah, and then you both go forward, and then you lift right in. And then while he's got you on the ball in the air, and then me and Josh will be pulling us.
Yeah, obviously watching the rugby, even training, it's difficult because obviously you see stuff that go wrong, and I feel like I should be there to obviously correct it, help the boys out, because we've got a few young lads behind us who've never played rugby. It's the first time they've played rugby, and although I probably would have been picked for the bench, obviously just to support the boys, it's going to be hard because all I can do is just give them verbal support and advice, but obviously I can't help them out there on the pitch.
Evan Clem at Solent Sports News.
Staying with rugby, former Ireland rugby coach Eddie O'Sullivan says Ulster winger Robert Baloucoune has a good chance of starting against Wales in the first Six Nations match. The 24-year-old is aiming for a first appearance in the Six Nations. O'Sullivan said there's a good chance of Robert Baloucoune starting. I think he's played his way in there. Apologies for the earlier technical difficulties. Here is the Solent Redhawks piece now.
Solent Redhawks take on Bath Spa Bulldogs today in a crucial must-win game, where, if Solent do so, they progress into the playoffs. We follow Solent's Samuel Cheshire, number 11 and team captain for today's game.
Perhaps you wouldn't expect to find an Australian on an American football field, but Sam bucks his trend.
So I was born in the UK. I moved to Australia at age 1. Spent 13, 14 years there. The reason why we moved to Australia was because it was just a better life. The sun, the sporting activities, sport is huge over there, and obviously I'm a big sports person.
It wasn't easy for Sam to move back to the UK after spending the majority of his younger years down under.
Probably the biggest struggle was definitely the culture shock. The difference how friendship groups worked back in Australia with my mates. It was very much more laid back, we went with the flow. But over here it was just a bit, I don't know, it was more like laddie lad. I didn't really fit into any groups because I just didn't really get on with them.
However, one place Sam does fit in is with the Solent Redhawks. But just how did someone from Australia end up playing American football in the UK? Here's Sam telling us how.
Well, as cliche as it sounds, it's one of those sports I've always wanted to try. It's always interested me. Another thing is I've always, tried different sports. Like growing up, it was just part of trying a new sport. I really was interested in it, and ever since I started, I just fell in love with it. It's such a fun sport, the social as well. People I play with, the coaches. It's exceeded my expectations.
In yesterday's League One match, Portsmouth FC fell to defeat against Charlton Athletic at Fratton Park. The first goal sparked controversy as Trix Eneke was clearly offside in the build-up of Charlton's goal in the 31st minute before a tap-in by Connor Washington. Clark Robertson's own goal doubled Charlton's lead in the 64th minute, and Portsmouth's Michael Jacobs managed only to reduce the deficit in the 79th minute. The defeat leaves Portsmouth 11 points short of playoff places, with Charlton steering 8 points clear of relegation. In the cricket, the semi-finals of the Under-19 World Cup got underway today, with England taking on Afghanistan in Antigua. England are currently 120 for 5, however, rain has stopped play after Afghanistan picked up the wicket of in-form captain and Hampshire batsman Tom Prest. The Lions are aiming for their second World Cup triumph. Chris Eubank Jr. is preparing for his British middleweight grudge match with Liam Williams. Harlem Eubank, who is the cousin of Chris Eubank, is currently training in the same gym as Williams in a bizarre scenario. The showdown will be taking place in Cardiff, with the pair vying for a future world title shot. After the January transfer window came to a close, one team down on the south has done significantly more business than its coastal rivals. We go live to St Mary's Stadium, where Byron Goodchild got the thoughts of a local Bournemouth fan.
Disappointing transfer deadline day, as Ralph Hasenhüttl failed to make any signature signings for the team. However, rivals Bournemouth were able to make 5 crucial signings for the team. The signings consist of Siriki Dembele, who joined from Peterborough on a permanent move, young defender Nat Phillips, who joined from Liverpool, who plays centre-back, creative midfielder Todd Cantwell, Welsh striker Keith Moore, and finally goalkeeper Freddie Woodman, totalling the club spending of $9 million. I'm here with sports journalist Saj Rahman and Bournemouth fan. So Saj, how happy are you with the signing of Todd Cantwell?
Oh, I think it's a massive signing for Bournemouth, really. He lit up the Premier League in his first season with Norwich, and it was only a couple of seasons ago he was being touted with the biggest names in England. For Bournemouth to get him on a push for promotion, I think it's huge for them, to be honest.
So, how confident are you with these 5 signings that they will contribute greatly to your club's continued push for promotion?
I think it's huge. I think Scotty Parker's done brilliant to address the areas of weakness for Bournemouth, so he signed a tall striker because sometimes we just lack another way of scoring, and he gives us that aerial threat. And then obviously with Nat Phillips as well at the back, he's a huge Premier League proven defender, and I think they will go on to push for promotion now, yeah.
Well, with these signings proving to be very happy for Bournemouth fans, we'll keep a close eye on them to see how well they do in Bournemouth's continued push for promotion back into the Premier League.
That's all for now. Head over to solentjournalism.co.uk for more news.